Hello, America. This is about since before America's founding parents were born, roles entrenched with what was entrenched were roles with what was entrenched in those countries too. For example, when I say we are in a semi-ancient trap, and this is increasingly value to discernment, to discernment's opinions and convictions, but those opinions and convictions have remained as arrays of difference that are in collusion against the short words or a little bit protracted from that, let alone them allowed to protract with people listening, not just listening, people people listening and dealing with actual premises treatments. See, proper fact treatments, proper sequence treatments, and the value of that proper value of that treatment. See, there is only one system that is simultaneously functional by being invisible but still discernible and only increasing. So it is that so being everything is designed in demonstration of the hyper-simultaneous. For example, that's why people can't afford discernment of and uses of. They can't afford this discernment of simultaneous alone, let alone hyper simultaneous. In other words, not just not just the invisible simultaneous as the value of the nature of volume that is the subject, and of the nature of volume that is the predicate or the verb. And it's related, the predicate is the main verb, so the verb and its related words in a sentence relative to the subject and its related words in a sentence. Or if it is a two-word sentence. If it is a one-word sentence, this is relative, for example, the other subjects and their conjunction to other predicates, and as the same identity of volume, as the same subject / predicate. More and more forever nature is being made, only the extent of it is debatable. So it's disrespectful to the person who died or even who got hurt at the world capitol. It to blame anyone who didn't do an act of violence, anyone who didn't, break a window. And those people who did break the window, trying to make it, people trying to make an example. In other words, we have to examine the lies that each branch of government would tell themselves and others originally and still to hide for roles with this breaching screen method. But one of the things they would do is separate subjects. For example, regarding slavery and witch trials and torture, for how our founding parents left us to explain them, for how our founding parents left us to explain Washington, D.C. distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous / hyper-simultaneous. The hyper-simultaneous in its value conjunction and part of our significance to and as an inseparable, increasingly valuable part of our nature is increasingly prevented voice and answer / s that are inherent. But you have to think like the entire species, the identity of volume, is your kids. And in other words, this is relevant because they're offensively in collusion with constituencies, the Democrats and the Republicans. Constituencies that are styles of fact-keeping nature relevant to roles with juxtaposed natures of uncharged of organized crime, or as juxtaposed natures of predicate acts delivery, whole methods of them. For example, as collusions with people that just report news, and they know that they're lying and attaching people to fake words, fake ties to other people, fake natures of ties to other people, and they just forget that and keep going because of the roles and the extent of how and why we have police forms having gotten away with this because they have insights into how they have hundreds of countries here and there shared with our kids here and there being educated, and that's also evil. That has relativity to where the campuses are involved with a vertical and horizontal databases oriented organized crime method. It is also simultaneously private databases, relationships, and stewards that have nothing to do with this. And increasingly, that was kept and is kept collusion with all identity ground locations, areas, and states involved with a snowball effect, identity theft / fraud / slander method / S against each, but through our own. To discern it, forgiveness is needed for this. But see, offensively, this shows where and how locations, areas, and states, including the interbranch of all other countries too, at the same time. So if one starts admitting it, being that quality of fact, keeping nature, where we show everyone's what was perjury. This is worse than a perjury trap, which I heard on CNN, Fox News, or MSNBC. This is a hyper perjury trap designed to make people need to counter it. And so only being and making them not realizing how and why everyone's only affording a quality of fact keeping nature, speaking to others, that they would have to simplify things in another way, other than how nature wants and needs us to simplify things, or to show and to speak about what's complicated too. How they are simultaneously distinct values but connected. They are in demonstration of the simultaneous. What is hot and what is cold? It's not just in demonstration of the warm. It's in demonstration of its value. It's not just in demonstration of its value. It's in demonstration of the function of that. So to really understand America, you have to understand the breaching method that was databases oriented, and how it was is oriented, exploiting how they engineered without everyone realizing naive reactions and naive reaction natures that in defenses of themselves would be in our valuing criminally foreign influence premises treatments, time treatments, name treatments, title treatments, ground treatments, value treatments. There was a hyper function per value specifically because, not for the obvious reasons, and not to be told, or nor entertained how told. People say, oh, well, how do we feel good about ourselves? Follow mandated law outside of courts. Don't attach me to fake words. Or lie about the substance of our and replace it with fabricated audio video, the substance of our phone conversations, saying people involved in news as news media, locations, Don't pretend you guys don't like me because you need to sequence shift. Don't pretend you guys don't like the people at the World Trade Center or at the not World Trade Center, excuse me, at Washington Capitol on the attack, and don't pretend you hate them. If you want to pretend that you hate someone or don't like someone, pick out the person in their act and see them then they're going to be speaking about. They're going to show you actually. Everyone's going to discern they're invisible but still discernible. Nature relevant to uses of it, where and how they have the people punishing what they call criminals and actual criminals. But those locations associated with the people punishing them, they are with the interbranch too. You need to hide how they have roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders, since with their patients and criminals against innocent people. How they are used remotely, all identities individually grouped and together with that place. All those places, including on off the state prison offices, on off the state judicial branch offices, along routes through time, along Route 3 through time. Whole bunch of people recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with identity thefts and frauds against me. With the interbranch as ones that are recorded how maintain criminally foreign influence, and then further through what is fluent through how countries are bound individually grouped in together as archetypal criminal enterprises, increasingly blaming and having blamed and the real causes of it on other things, others, and or on themselves, increasingly having self-valued that, which is simultaneously increasingly self-valued roles where the prisons and where the regular kids campuses and adult campuses, fire campuses, medical campuses, they're kept needing to hide the same life progressions per their roles with from the youngest grades, roles with this identity theft fraud method, which is positive and negative treatment methods. Know how identity is simultaneous um, identity of relativity to what is itself, the hyper-simultaneous, relative to positive and negative, the same way we are, but also as what's going to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, natures, or negative value nature progression, acts, natures. But per its system, see exceptions to that value treatments, therefore syntax treatments to all identity of the ground locations individually grouped in together. They are being and having been employed to and as natures of logic that can't defend themselves and afford us. Defense of ourselves from the natures of criminal insidiousness and from the associated with the methods of predicate acts delivery system method /S that American history is really about. That's short words. People have to pretend passion and emotions about our short words when we use premises treatments and correlation natures actually inherent active and progressive means properly. The value of sequence is being denied by the logic of the people speaking for January 6th. That is being measured and maintained because what is valued is not just the defenses of it, but the defenses of the premises treatments in there. So they keep the parties fighting with each other, increasingly reliant upon constituencies that are criminally foreign influence through juxtaposed natures of organized crime and worse than war crimes and that's increasingly itself manifest at all identity ground locations and relative and further where there are scientific locations. This further is conscious exploitation of the conscious effectively maintain self-possession by a breaching method possession. It's got nothing to do with economic value treatments. It has nothing to do with if it's good or bad. It's good for people if you're wealthy or if you're poor. It's good to have not just stability. See, stability, non-stability. Either one of those are invisible but still discernible. With the hyper-simultaneous is simultaneous. Either one of those could be positive or negative. Either one of those could be a treatment of positive that is being used as criminal insidious nature. Could be a treatment of negative that is really positive. People say, "Oh, well, we have to relax. We have to speak about something positive. Let's leave out the serious things." All we have to do is one time put the serious things and get the theater out, and discern how criminally legalized and forced roles with through other motivations, natures, needs, interests, apparent, but all that was used remotely. Propagated criminal insidious natures of identities of relationships to themselves, the colonists. Forced that. It was the breaching method forced that on the Native Americans and on the colonists sickly distinctly on every single Native American individually. How could they have the means to know and sense that? Because they set up the crazy laws that were completely syntax oriented, opinion / convictions oriented. So you have a person who already, you have people, you have locations, areas, and states that have already been in collusion with actual all natures of predators, because they were already in collusion with them with illusions at locations, roles with fact treatment oriented predicate acts that no one was responsible for. They were effectively being and having been used to keep everyone while they're making fact treatments formal and informal, blaming what nature was demonstrating. The breaching method did and does. As they measured and maintained. Everyone blaming it on other things, others and or on selves, the way it needs them to. It measures and maintains. Left out, and so they're pretending they don't realize how people who answer the phones for the FBI are recorded and involved with wire crime acts and methods with them. They're aware that they themselves are involved criminally leading up to and in a 2006 district court case with former director of the FBI, with police forms on off campuses before that and since, also involved on off the World Trade Center. See, the World Trade Center is involved with investigations and investigators. And as natures of identities, no, because criminal insidiousness was criminally legalized. So people have been trying to, there is complete possession of people who want to, use the fact that they were an identity of the law, the fact they were an identity of someone who worked for the branch of the government, or the identity of someone who worked for the campuses that trains the, or an identity of the one of the branch of government, or identity of a overt criminal enterprise, if only they are manifest per how the other countries have treatments of criminal enterprises, having countered originally. So I'm not even a lawyer. They originally still countered the groups wrong. They grouped criminal enterprises wrong, leaving out increasingly how black and white was put into the entertained with the law by the breaching method to measure and maintain. Each age of correlation, nature's voice. Collusion with that identity theft from fraud against everyone, sickly, distinctly, specifically for the premises treatments, timing treatments. So now they have once they have a problem with between kids. In other words, once they sustain this not told true at the youngest ages, while they're doing that, they're blaming other things, others and ourselves. And then they explain to those kids, because they're explaining other than you realize to the kids. That's what's actually recorded. The interbranch family members and the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones are demonstrating, confirming, recording their personal needs to keep the actually inherent active progressive means to demonstrate fake theater when people make treatments of of color, including into the defenses of themselves, including in defenses, the closest they make to defenses of locations is attaching it to race and what people they want to fight with people about what they perceive and why or how they perceive themselves. Well, people that we don't even have to, ever even had conversations with, interbranch. The identity of corruption, former director of the FBI, other police forms, police chiefs, their family members. See, when the branches of government, they rely on, they value the people who attack the Capitol, so they could pretend to be against. That's why they could pretend. That's why they justify their logic and roles with that which offensively at locations prevents mandated law, already prevented it, and needed to pretend others simultaneously. So they don't real honesty would not leave out how our founders left us to demonstrate how slavery had been entrenched north and south, and the motivations of it and uses of it by the breaching method that had nothing to do with Carter. It was a breaching method, a slavery method against every single person. So you would be sensed if you tried to build any unity, or if you tried to be an individual apart from those natures, that nature of unity / IES only allowed a voice / S in that array, complete possession as that identity of theater called criminal insidiousness, and semi as a hyper criminal insidiousness simultaneous, only being able to because in generation of that which will be and stay per science, most probably and more practically than what people claim is probable and practical. We become negative value nature for positive value nature progressions somewhere else, where one identity is simultaneously greater than and more finite than, while as complete possession of the simultaneous nature, that both space / existence are simultaneously. So, and that slash being part of its identity. And those are one of the things it is simultaneously, increasingly, constantly, while it is also things variably. But one of the things it is constantly, there are 5 distinct / non-distinct and / hyper-simultaneous identities of sequence / simultaneous nature. There are 5 distinct identities of sequence nature, but they are simultaneously, while being and as being that, they are simultaneously 2 volumes further. So it's like saying they are the cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall, and 2 identities of sequence / simultaneous nature. Further, simultaneously, in generation of one identity of hyper-simultaneous, that is complete possession over all parts of space nature, distinctly, non-distinctly, and hyper-simultaneously relevant to where and how it is self-generating. Only more and more forever nature, only the extent of it is debatable. But the extent of things and the short of things are being and having, there have been debated offensively by and as qualities of fact-keeping nature and collusion as the branches of government and as the overt criminal enterprises and as private ones, and per uses of that criminal insidiousness that had been propagated to and as the arrays of opinion natures A through Z, because other was replaced. Where and how American histories, principle, truths, and as ones not used for lies, not valuing exceptions being or having been exploited, relevant to it. So remember, Jim Crow laws are about how the Constitution got abridged, how it was designed, the trap entrenched below everyone, opinions A through Z, locations A through Z, and entrenched as what is greater than everyone's control. Hundreds of nations were trapped knaves themselves. So as locations, areas, and states, as counters to it as fact-keeping nature, quality / IES, not fathoming, but in other words, for this narrative proper, that is instant reliefs and where everyone could agree. Actually, they're pretending they can't agree offensively and preventing us from reporting sequence shifts. And they're measuring and maintaining how the countries are going to start fighting because of Eric Oliveri and Joe Iowa were in our recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, also involved with this Joshua Stryker with identity thefts and frauds with a whole bunch of other countries. And per the FBI director and other FBI and agencies and their family members involved with identity theft, frauds, and slanders on off campuses, they have an officer with use the name Darth Vader. Wants his motivations to be evidence, because that's part of the way they evidence plant at locations. Excuse me, where they are being and having been, they have been involved with predicate acts of and roles with juxtaposed natures of organized crime, specifically for their uses of them needing to hide finite, active, progressive lies at other locations from those. All the formal locations and informal locations are being and having been used remotely, and the locations next to them. A lot of times when bad things happen, the places next to them are being used and have been used remotely for fact-keeping nature-oriented predicate acts and for natures of identity theft, fraud, slanders, also relevant as roles with sequence shifts, because the where and how 1/3/5 identities of sequence / simultaneous natures share an identity that is hyper invisible but still discernible. How so is in demonstration. So in other words, they have people only having heard people making allegations against others at locations. Because, like, for example, before it was proven in court cases, there are various natures of federal criminals and of other countries that are in collusion, where they were pretending positive and negative treatments and passions and emotions. But it turned out they were doing that because they were corrupt. So they were and are exploiting, where they have criminally foreign influence readings of statutes originally and still self-valued roles with criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and precedents. Jim Crow laws are about criminally foreign influence readings of precedents and of statutes. See, now this is by individuals per that criminal insidiousness relevant to the volume of opinions and convictions A through Z. that are blaming other things, others, ourselves, for what really are negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures against you, in collusion also with the with and against our founders, where and how they're the same people that are pretending to be for them. That's relevant to where and how. Replaced are those simple convictions. So all these arrays. One of the things that that all kinds of styles of the interbranch pretend is legitimacy to other people's logic, like therapists and things like that. And when they speak, they're involved with networks criminally already. The only ones who speak. They're involved with logic, with physical delusions simultaneously. They're involved with that which recorded overtly, with that as that which is actually recorded, where being and having been. Nature demonstrating the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, even predicate acts, even specifically regarding criminal and insidiousness natures like wrongdoers and like wrongdoing itself, which is where forgiveness is not to give up to this, but forgiveness is to counter the remote uses of it, which itself is remote uses of that which is simultaneous and self-cultivated roles, self-valuing that, incapable of being afforded discern because of the revelations that come by the short words of it, protracted. So, I just noticed there are Canadian geese that go by my house every year. There used to be mallard. There are no mallard geese anymore. The worms don't walk into the puddles anymore. The soil has changed. We took the you could keep saying there's no more humans going in. The life, all the different lives, finite. See, we're supposed to its identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that. For example, it is ordered by the finite that we can't control, but we can, except for by controlling and understanding its identity of relationship to itself, its identity as volume slash S, and its identity of relationship to itself that way per its system, and the value of that, which is not just humans, you know. And when they bring up economic variables, when they bring up economic constants, no one had this taught properly. So that's one of the things it is simultaneously. And see, its identity of relationship to itself and the value of that is also relevant to where and how positive treatments, truths, and facts could be used for lies, could be used to exploit exceptions and exception nature, in other words. So they have people I don't know the names of who are black from Wethersfield, Connecticut, that are involved with identity thefts and frauds against me. And they're involved with as victims, but as victim predators, and not of me. And where there is an exception, they're covering sequence shifts and roles with that and uses of those methods with that, which is also between campuses, private and public school. They are preventing evidences also because they have both parties individually and grouped. They have self-valued roles with how they have been criminally foreign influenced distinctly from the other branches of government. I mean, and they've been criminally foreign influence grouped too, not just all together and not just individually. And there are methods manifest, and there are methods that have been manifest with that. The same, there are recorded, there are people on TV, on Fox News, MSNBC, and or on CNN who pretend that they're trying to figure out how to stop crimes. because they need to pretend outside. They need to hide what I caught them doing at all locations. Sequence shifting, offensively planting evidences verbally and as roles, even planting fabricated audio and video, and to replace actually recorded audio and video, even with the news too. Roles was doing that on and off campuses, and with people, a whole bunch of people, with the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, involved on and off Trinity College. Now, so these are people also pretending passions and emotions as courts, pretending they have the integrity to speak for about things like racism or hate. They were doing that because they are caught outside of court. They're caught roles inside of court using methods with the other branches of government too, planting fabricated audio and video to replace what's actually recorded. I caught them with a child abuser. They recorded, confessed, demonstrated, recorded, confirmed. Through time, they didn't let little kids tell on people that abused them. In other words, there were men and women involved with that, and there still are. They left out how the interbranch roles with that. They have methods of receiving data and evidences that are criminally foreign influence. Increasingly, they're getting away with it because that is sourced through what they have at the youngest grades, would have replaced proper positive and negative treatments. They can't afford that discerned because of little tricks they do through the kids, telling on people specifically to make up things and lie about the character of other people's into databases, and then to pretend it's personal, to pretend we even know their names or remember their names, or that was even significant to us then or now. That's just significant, and then exploiting exceptions as nature. Oh, why would you do that? They want to stay on the sequence shifts. I still haven't been responded to by the principal child abuser's campus and his confessions. Now, I have a right to be livid. I had a right to stay calm even when I had to be right to be livid. You guys lied about with the people with you. You haven't responded to me. You have the Attorney General. You have people across the states that are offensive data reception identity. You know how some people relative to those kind of crazy breaching laws, they would have to make truth treatments that were greater than and more finite than the truth treatments being made by the courts, like with witch trials, well as their value treatments, but they would be denying it because they would be denying what's greater than and more finite as value, because they have criminally foreign influence readings of precedents and statute and of the nature of the law, where it is a solid body of value, but it can only be discerned one way. And that is only using what is invisible but still discernible. As the simultaneous means a whole bunch of invisible but discernible subjects, names, and things. Phenomena. Relevant to the one phenomenon, the hyper-simultaneous. That which is increasingly needed to be discerned when, if everyone's going to speak about why and how, what species being a species is about. Oh, it's in a question, and it's being a species about the three identities of that are bound grouped to the same reason why and how the notes of music are bound individually, grouped and together. This was revealed more than it was invented and then reinvented, more probable and practical per how they left out, for example, the relevance, the value of how the sequence, how the database relationships, how the sciences were criminally foreign influenced at the time here, there, across the board of countries. Oh, but it was legalized, so you can't call it criminally foreign influenced. That logic needs to think that because it already took part with that identity of child abuse on every identity of campus, sickly, distinctly, specifically to keep the nature of law with no voice, specifically to keep self-valued victim reactions to it. Because once you have that replaced, our founders can tell no lies, all lies. So That's what they're doing. They're offensively pretending that the law is about making discipline exception. No one hears about the discipline they're doing to people in the background, making big punishments or whatever like that. No one. That's not going to teach people. You teach people the people where they're supposed to be taught. They had and have right through careers. They already had the policing of the schools and things like that. With this racket, where they use words like criminal, where and how they have people doing that who, since they've at each age of their fact-sheeping nature, are involved, confessing, demonstrating, recording as they do the interbranch, so distinctly, not distinctly, and simultaneously with the overt criminal enterprises in private, and that insidiousness to styles of logic, styles of identities of the ground as as the parts of our species body of volume, speaking exactly the way the breaching method wanted and needs. So thank you, Russia. You guys are the only ones that I believe that's Russian. I don't know. I don't know, but they're only showing you me the Russian because I caught the FBI with Russians too, though, and the people pretending to be against Russian collusion. Now, how I did this, for example, is relevant to how they have all these countries here and there shared, and they're pretending we don't have the means to discern this, and they're recorded pretending that dishonestly. So they're recorded increasingly self-valuing how they got away with, how the past got away with it. And we know the past, stayed roles with that breaching method that was entrenched here before our founding parents were born, that which used remotely everyone's fact-sheeping nature and identities of relationship to themselves and others. So if anyone tried to be or speak for the nature of the law, for the sciences properly, or for positive and negative properly, it would be sense discerned. See, this is the what you hear on the news, not, and then they're pretending it's personal because they have to sequence shift. I'm speaking about the invisible but still discernible. See, in other words, I'm not speaking about. I know everyone's a great everyone's are great people. Everyone is a great species body, but everyone is justifying what can't justify itself, can't defend what it already spoke. Not because not relative to hate or whatever like that. They have recorded involved identity theft frauds against me and others. The interbranch arrays of different types of people, including the white hate groups and black people in collusion with each other as judges, black and white female judges, per your guys' language formally. Two, no, never having addressed how what you guys were obligated to address and hyper obligated to address, where and how black and white treatments were forced by the breaching method, and that which was roles with it, which were, in other words, a minority from every country, and to make people not capable of countering themselves. They made people only capable of of speaking for culture, the culture of the law, with physical delusions, with criminally foreign influence premises treatments, fact-sheeping nature qualities, fact-sheeping nature aspects, relevant to that which is hyper-generating and or only increasing volume as value, and where value is nature is value, as three distinct / non-distinct and simultaneous identities of sequence / simultaneous nature. For example, life, the things, all things, things. While our countries are in a trap, all we have to do is unite. We have to, one thing, leaders, all locations, areas, and states have been self-valuing criminally foreign influence premises treatments, fact-sheeping nature qualities. So you can't discern anything by dictator or non-dictator. It's not dealing with actual quality of fact nature, actual premises properly. Oh, but yes, that's a dictator. That's my premise. They're leaving. For example, they are offensively pretending that the president couldn't and doesn't know about, couldn't explain a whole bunch of ways that and how there could be. They're incapable of a proper election. Though the election locations, town offices, they're still involved with offensive identity theft, fraud, slanders, wire crime acts and methods, fake news, quote, fake news, unquote. They're denying the significance through the news, who is pretending it's personal. And they're told to do that, for example, for the reasons they self value the sick reactions of groups, because they need to pretend to be against such, because they are furthering such. Boxing is much when it sings, it teaches things. Boxings or says or not. So I'll get hot. This is a science that involves martial arts and boxing. So our countries can put this as an industry too. And to reveal journalism, to reveal the sciences from their abridged state, hyperjournalism rather, we'll call it. Because the sciences individually grouped in together, they were trained, hurt, tricked, forced, persuaded to simultaneously pretend to be about scientific process and to simultaneously pretend to be about other. Pretend that doesn't exist while making things up and making excuses. Oh, it's just politics. So there's complete possession over the identities of the law. So they use methods like pretending that they can't believe that the FBI could do such, could take parts with Connecticut news locations, fabricating audio and video, attaching me and others to fake lies, fake words, fake ties to other people, fake natures of ties to other people, as people that have been using locations associated with a whole bunch of countries here and there, shared, criminally foreign influenced here and there, fake sides too. They need to pretend other here and there. They are told, because they only know how to pretend other here and there. Because you guys don't follow mandated law locations. People who want to punish people, they were just going with the crowd. If there's a crowd that you think is going to hurt someone, it's good to be right close to them. If you think you could, then you could help someone without even a weapon. In other words, people that just walk, there's a difference. Even if someone climbed the wall, there's a difference between climbing the wall and breaking a window. There's a difference between going with a weapon, and a hat. There's a difference where and how it looks like a theater that was like how they have the cameras there, like looking like were they pieced together cameras they already had standing. They are measured and maintained and capable of defending their treatments about an insurrection and about American history, incapable of defending their treatments of American history and us at the same time, from the nature of and method of criminal insidiousness that has them used already remotely, having spoken for the law. We have to counter how the prison stewards are involved with crimes with campuses, with identity thefts and frauds, with the interbranch too. Their roles play with the agencies and branches, putting people in our classes and forcing them to collusion. Like people in my two cooking classes I have, they involve those kids as child abused, and then they want and need us to fight. Then everyone's speaking through others. If you want us to fight, give me his name. Because they know my name, but these are investigators on and off Elm Street and Rocky Hill involved with this. Is a whole bunch of ways. Is one of the things that connects what they were doing on Broad Street with people from other countries Nothing about those other countries. It's their own against their own there too. And with the hypersensitive type things clicks, like fake white power narratives, and they're fake. These are the same people with that involved with like um with the pride theme thing, with a place on Broad Street, places on Broad Street, which is and the street that parallels it was I forgot the name of that street. The one that turns into Zion Street that goes right by Trinity College. There were also child campuses there and locations next to those campuses and next to Hartford Hospital, involved with a whole bunch of natures of organized crime, specifically for uses of it, where and how they have each a member of each age of correlation nature maintained, communicated to about how the branches of government lie with the overt criminal enterprises involved with our locations, areas, and states, and the private ones, and roles with that and uses of that insidiousness that is just to the opinions of everyone. That quality of fact treatment nature that everyone blames others themselves because they have to for time treatments as victim predators. Though, in other words, there are answers here, but everyone's victim to what they ignore, and they ignored uses of it because they ignored so much. I mean, you have to look at what is the extent of things and the short of things simultaneously. And we have to look at the value of sequence true, and not deny the value of sequence true. So the branches of government have roles individually grouped and together, preventing sequence shifts from being told on, preventing predicate acts, and or even if you wanted to argue and say, "Oh, how you want to call it a predicate act?" Preventing how they attach me and others to fake words from being told, prevented how it is actually recorded. They're needing and wanting to pretend passionate emotions at locations and online through the news, relevant to that, for their uses of locations. They've been fabricating audio and video. They've been planting evidence. They've been evidence racketeering. They've been using criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments and negative treatment simultaneously, as identity treatment simultaneously. They need to pretend other. One of the ways they do it is by pretending they believe that people need to have faith in the government, otherwise they're going to react crazy. People react crazy because you guys are not allowing actual integrity of logic to have free speech. You guys are still involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders that are recorded consciously, demonstrating, confessing, and recording their conjunctions and uses of private campuses and public schools and of the spots next to them and people's names in collusion and with as a method that prevents people from countering because you don't know the people, and then they're going to make and they're going to lie about the exception of how you know their names, because the overt criminal, that's when knows the extent, that's what it plays out as. Overt criminal enterprises, private criminal enterprises, the interbranch, all private exceptions tied to them, keep needing to hide the same sequence shifts regarding ground locations, other people's names. They don't even know. You guys can't follow mandated law. They use crime methods without the constituencies of the political parties distinctly from themselves, the individual voices, but as themselves too, non-distinctly. Their roles with offensive evidence reception racketeering and data reception racketeering methods that have adults describing interactions and instances between kids and sequence relationships and the nature of identity relationships completely fabricated And they are doing this increasingly between schools connected, and they're involving the identity of the correlation nature at each age of campus, including public and private. They're connecting them. So big world, small world confirmed things are still confirmed. Criminally foreign influence delusions posited there, and delusions juxtaposed. So juxtapose our natures that our sense and sensibilities that can't afford offensively can't afford a quality of fact achievement at any location, quality of fact achievement nature at any location, area, or state. Voice to have mandated law followed properly regarding sequence shifts and regarding uses of wire crime acts and methods. For example, would have the sense and sensibilities of people who are trained to answer the phones too. The training of that coexist with as the how they have the sciences coexisting with each other, individually grouped and together, abridged. So it's and they all spoke for and speak for the economies, individually grouped and together, shared the same way our kids are. I don't have any kids. God forbid, ladies. This is very attractive now. Now it's even harder for me to find. But would it I could follow the directions so I could learn to cook, vaccines. I want to be a boxer too. I have I have means and ways for you guys. So New York City, if we're going to do this plan and and change the way, try to come out of what was already done, entrapment. They didn't know how to counter because they have the child abuse method specifically to make you guys do crimes. Specifically, while simultaneously the same ones involved with that are pretending they could, or there might be a way to preemptively stop crimes. These are people that are involved with the worst natures and methods of crimes, and physical through their roles with fact nature oriented, including as identities of law once as victim predators, like response to what the kids do, like with New York City. Once they're like 15 or something like that. Then they have the physically discernible things they can blame it on. They left out that breaching method against each age of fact they never stopped. So in other words, it's in a trap becoming 18 years old, where how all the people that were involved with the law knew it was a trap. It's a trap. It's not gonna give everyone means to get out of it. And it's not going to give anyone means to get out of it. Fact nature oriented if they want to have what they call success, an abridged form of it, form/S. The breaching method is the abridged form of it. That is external, but it is self-valued being and having been external, while everyone was blaming other things, others and or themselves. That was being used remotely. So what would be and stay manifest as everyone's qualities of fact nature, qualities, and quality overall as criminal insidiousness nature. So that would stay valued. So no one will be able to afford discern value how value is nature / nature as value as three distinctly bound identities of sequence / simultaneous nature. As 1/3 as 1/5 further, as 5 like the cell nucleus, cell body, cell wall, 5 identities of sequence / simultaneous nature. So earth and gases and body of value discernment So the cell nucleus, cell body, cell walls. The cell walls share each other. Chloroplast. It fixes gas. It helps. See, but we're in this ancient trap. So all must rap or it yelps. The species body is down. I'll gather round vaccines. I teach you things, but long. So you gotta watch that theater when they pretend passions and emotions. They were calling it anger. And no, not all those people broke the doors. See, they're getting interstates, people to reactions to instances. These are also people roles with the World Trade Center attack investigators in the military ones involve sequence shifting, forging names, switching names, involve roles with the military police families since they were kids. I didn't get the name of that street. It's off of Wells Road that goes on off Town Line Drive. I mean, it goes off. It goes. Those people are associated, but it was on off Wells Road, on off Paul Manafort Drive, CCSU. Are involved with people at CNN sources, private, and the ones interbranch. Involved also with the exceptions, the exception nature too, tied to them. Involved also at campuses they work at and have family that associated with, where they have predicate acts roles together too. Further. And now these campuses, these colleges and universities are also ones that were involved through time intercities with the predicate acts method /S on and off the child campuses. So follow mandated law for the principal child abusers campus. Interbranch women, how they have self-valued roles with this. They're pretending passions and emotions too, hiding their sequence shifts, identity tests, and frauds roles, and needs to cover that up using the passions and emotions. They want to speak for passions and emotions dishonestly and then prevent free speech to do it while they're pretending to be about free speech. See breach. I teach you each. Follow mandated law for Washington, D.C. 2. Courts involved with the same names involved with the World Trade Center leading up to the attack. And since those investigators and those investigations associated with the World Trade Center every day, these are identities of law that can't defend themselves and us at the same time. As victims, but as victim predators. They want us to call them predators, need us to call them predators too, for the methods having been provided. Our own already handed them methods to pretend they'll get away with it. Again, relevant to where and how we have a whole bunch of country shit here, but it's not going to work this time. Not going to get away with hiding it. So I don't know this Eric Oliveri. And I told you they try to make exceptions to pretend other. And I never, and with this Joshua Straker involved, I never had a conversation with my life. They're pretending other with a Dean Alford. And they're involved with evidence racketeering methods with the judges and prosecutors and the FBI, planting evidences on Facebook, pretending passions and emotions regarding people's behavior on Facebook, when there are behavior predators involved with drugs and medicine crimes with kids. Also, per the syntax-oriented roles with the doctors and things like that with the news, attaching me to fake conversations with themselves and with doctors, even as a kid, fake mental diagnosis, fake ties to their family members too. You have some sick people involved with all that theater that pretends it's just normal theater. We're just reading the news. We have retired and standing interbranch, criminally foreign influence, whole bunch relative to this. So have them fix fake news, get through all their narratives regarding algorithms, which is part of part of that involved with where and how they have self-valued the roles as the branches and as the retired branches and their family members associated with the online policing of the internet companies like Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, you know, and so they have definitions of free speech and of needs to defend themselves regarding people's behavior online that other than can be that are being coached, forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded by what's from off their locations. This is from off campuses, maintained further on off it. They confess, demonstrate, confirm roles. But then we have to have a needs, we have to have means to tell when the people who are vetting what we tell, if it is right or not, they are lying because they need to hide lies individually grouped in together. They're increasingly reliant upon quote groupthink unquote. They're increasingly reliant upon the states, locations, areas having been never stopped being involved with torture and setting up exceptions to pretend other, getting over on exception nature as their own, as criminal and seditious nature, increasingly by our locations, areas, and states, only allowed to be voices of roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders, breaching method employed, pretending other, breaching screen employed, breaching tools, weapons, worse. Let's all rehearse boxings. I teach you things. You cannot leave out how the prisons are involved with way worse crimes than the ones they put the kids in New York City jails for, which is easy to discern. But it's sickly non-distinctly too to all locations, areas, and states. Weathersfield interbranch and the state's prisons offices on Weathersfield/Hartford. This is also easier to discern where it is interstates. And we have to use this anyway because of the relevance of the relativity of where and how slavery was left in the North and South by our founders. And they wanted us to demonstrate how it was entrenched. And they made the North and South forced to fight with each other as fact in nature. So they would have to pretend to be against things and pretend to be for things, both the way our actual founders wanted and needed, and the way the breaching method wanted and needed. And so people would discern this. So, but we have not learned this enough and fast enough. So grasp this, tough and strong. Boxing is long, but short. Someone say, I understand. Our news does lie. I understand people don't let people have mandated law as people that are offensively pretending other, because they've been roles with offensive vertical and horizontal database organized crime method. The only reason /S, the only reason that part of it hasn't gotten caught is because of how it was and is. Worse than that, at all locations first, and increasingly from all locations, more and more on and off locations through other motivations, natures, needs, interests of collusion with the names and sequence treatments and stuff like that on and off the locations. It's like computers sound complicated, but they're not complicated. All exception nature. They already invested all the people experts on it, pretending other. Differentially, opposite, where and how, relative to simultaneous / hyper simultaneously actually exists and actually is discernible. See, we have a whole bunch of different countries that pretend to discern a whole bunch of different medical diagnosis in people. And they've been fabricating conversations with people, also with their family members, planting evidences at locations. This also takes complete possession over people who are going to make treatments about what is sarcasm, what is their own, the value of their own or others. So the news media is pretending to be about offensively, including with the people who place ad placements, They are pretending to be for diversity because they need to hide how they have roles at all locations, areas, and states. With and as that fake nature of the law, voice slash S, that is preventing free speech from liberating and speaking about properly American history, let alone America active now, and at locations, areas, and states, and each individual. So they confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed they value how they had other natures of child abuse, other natures of elderly abuse, and members and roles with that, natures and needs with roles with that. When they had the child abuse is reported through time that the religious locations are being haven't been involved with. They also made male and female treatments with that. They pretended things are sexual so much that it might not even have been. They might have framed those people. Because, for example, there's a Tim O'Brien, Andrew O'Brien, involved with some of the religious spots, involved also with Justin Klavinskis, and people associated with it, Mark Violet, and people associated with Chet Casper, and with the buildings next to the state capitol involved with identity theft, fraud, slander, falsified police reports with them. It's got something to do with their roles with the identity ground. Also along Route 3 and its conjunction to various ways to the places along the Berlin Turnpike in Newington. And other people associated with, I forgot their names. I don't even know. Tried to make an exception to me in the past. They acted exceptions. They make nonverbal confessions. There was also a guy named Dr. Dingleberry and or Dr. Dewberry. They're involved with drugs crimes with them and with people with a name Anthony Agman involved with town offices, intercities, and Wethersfield town offices and with the Wethersfield Police Department. Also with some Mendes police involved further with principal sex offender who was involved with juxtaposed natures of child abuse, identity thefts and frauds, falsified police reports with them, wire crime rolls with them, wire crime methods rolls with them. Not just the Facebook. I'm talking about they fabricated emails too, also with New Britain, Connecticut, NBC Connecticut News. Please fix the news. Please help communicate with me, NBC Connecticut News. Please stop lying about your responses to what I say and changing what I say to other things. And please stop pretending I'm doing that. You guys brought this up. In other words, the sequence shifts reveal this. You guys started this conversation /yes. You guys brought your names up. And with the Wethersfield police switching and forging names with the other police departments and their family members, planting evidences on my street, fake evidences, lying about them into people's conversations as the people involved all along roads and routes involved too with the identity natures of identity theft, fraud, slanders. You guys are increasingly self-valued roles with, and for example, pretending offensively to be about diversity, and you wanting to need, pretending other people that their differences with you are about what you look like, too, or what or that they have the interbranch opinion natures and styles of logic that are involved with identity thefts and frauds offensively, specifically. So in the future, they can't go back and be honest about the past. Now they have sequence shifting and they have name switching also roles. They cannot afford that which nature is having us be this way, discerned. They cannot afford a quality of fact human nature we have to be to teach about American history properly. Now, the reason there are problems against people are because the people studied, in other words, tactile nature, identity grounds, identity of relationship to itself, and distinctly, not distinctly as ourselves. And simultaneously as ourselves per means denied. We have way more finite means than this. Has nothing to do with the economy. Then you can fix it real fast. Then you don't stay on the tactically natured torture method, slavery method employed. I did since before cars, before our founding parents were born. Pathology of homes means to them, so to speak. I'll whisper creak. You hear I speak, but long. So what we have to do is take me to the ground. Get those courts on paper. They use wire crimes and mail crime methods, and they have their interbranch locations used to fabricate audio and video evidences into the databases using a whole bunch of different crime methods. They also have roles at campuses doing this and having had this done, and on off the World Trade Center, on and off the Ninth Circuit Court next to it, leading up to the World Trade Center, and since roles from inside those locations with sequence shifts, as ties between the names involved, also as roles with predicate acts in cases against American citizens and little kids, with the branch of government group too, with the judges and prosecutors and people involved with this former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, a whole bunch of people associated with him and his co-defendants involved on and off Fox Connecticut News, on and off WFSB, and on and off campuses I went to involved with identity thefts and frauds from behind my back. Courts interbranch pretending we knew kids that we never even saw around campus. They're pretending other into databases. They try to make exceptions to pretend other too, because they're getting the way they get over our exception nature. So you could be systems other than the natures, what really is going to cause positive and negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures, which is a science about the simultaneous / hyper-simultaneous, not simultaneous, even as the species alone. Is a distinct identity of simultaneous, that which is everything at once, actually. Vaccines to campus dons, the stolen name. You return that here. Evolution science feels like game. I'll train the Burroughs book. It gathers in another video. Look. All people have to do, put down. I agree. Let's get them. Make them follow sequence true and mandated law locations regarding what hurts people too the most. So they have a little crime method against the little kids of New York City, sickly distinctly from how I caught them having it against the kids at the grammar schools and such in Wethersfield and intercities, in Hartford, for example. They have the spots next to the campuses too employed while it plays out what people need to react as fact-cheaping nature. And you don't know because it comes simultaneously. How it comes simultaneously. The overt criminal enterprises and the interbranch and the private and that insidiousness of everyone relative to where and how positive and negative treatments are made at each age. It was specifically to keep out actually proper answers. So it's not by accident. American history is very simple. It's not by accident. All exceptions, exception nature are recorded being and having been self-valued means to worse than obfuscate how the sciences are being and haven't been obfuscated. They're using time treatments simultaneously, too fast, too slow, to separate the sciences, to make more, waste of time. Quality effect, they should be going like that. If the kids didn't take good notes because you didn't give it to them, good. You didn't make it understood. They're playing games. And because it came from off the campuses. It was already sustained on off campuses. It was already an identity of volume where we are fact-cheaping nature. That is, can't defend itself without valuing it having been. Can't get away with that being valued. Where people are making value treatments. For example, in other words, value treatments regarding the January 6th, the attack on the thing. They're using it to get over on the value of the individuals on a mass scale. They get over on with their little convictions, like regarding all the people there. not regarding their acts. And when they bring up insurrection, they are measured and maintained, incapable of defending themselves and us from that nature of criminal insidiousness those natures of criminal insidiousness too, associated with the breaching method, originally and still inseparable. American history is about that breaching method too. It is about that predicate acts delivery system method. It is about that criminal insidiousness delivery system method. It employed criminal insidiousness natures of identities, therefore of positive and negative treatments, time treatments. With their logic, it replaced that which nature is demonstrating and demonstrated to the ancients, actually, the Native Americans ancestors, actually, as our own ancestors, humanity, as one volume. But they sustained that is what the methods and that is what is actually recorded. Only the extent of it is debatable. And even if that were made up, it is nature demonstrates that is more practical and probable to convict and or to opine anyway. That's what history is about. They forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded Native Americans no longer capable of preserving their education and their revelations that had been brought by nature working through our species before sciences became criminally foreign influenced. And so they measured and maintained other taught in place of this, just like they did to the colonists first. They had completed this against the colonists first before they came here. And they completed it against Native Americans and American citizens, just like they completed it against colonists, blaming other things, others, and or themselves. The real cause of Britain, in other words, boxing. I teach you things. No one can hear. No one's here. Someone was here. Someone left. Like my smile. Boxing is wild. So no one, you have the line, MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, don't be mad. Please follow mandated law. You can't record the police and the courts, but I found these means too. I show how they recorded themselves. Excuse me. Have a great day. Thank you. Many pray. Boxing, follow mandated law for them. Give me names. Someone take a position. Just give me a name. Give me a response for the campus because they got principals in jail. Principal child abuse of upskirt nature was first involved then and now with the Wethersfield police chief, his family, and families interbranch, including women, and rolls with it. Through everyone speaking through others too, not by accident. Since founding, they've been doing this. So we'll examine how they've been doing this. Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.